Some GDM3s go down the track like this. And then they end up crashing. Some GDM3s, like mine, go down the track like this. And they're silky smooth, run a 7.8 like nothing. So there's major differences between those two cars. And I'm gonna explain to you how we have my car making 1,350 wheel horsepower, going 7.8, going as straight as possible with no real issues. We're gonna break down the full suspension details from front to back. I'm not hiding anything at all. And I'm also gonna tell you guys about all the tweaks we're making now to test in the future. Shock and spring wise, we actually have BC Racing coilovers. On my drag F80M3, we had two ways, which allow you just how fast it expands, which is the rebound, and how fast it compresses back down, compression, independently. So you can literally make it so if your car does a wheelie a little bit, you can literally make it so it holds that and then slowly drops back down. If you don't have that, you have a single adjustable, it adjusts them both together. You have a little bit less independent control. We're starting with this, we're getting data, we're giving it back to BC Racing, and then they're gonna come back to me with a shock. If I just tell them, hey, I need more of this, I need more of that, they're gonna work with me and probably end up giving me a two-way shock in the front and rear to dial it in better. This is like the V1 of the drag shock from them. It will be a purchasable thing if you guys wanna go get proper shocks. The springs in the front are a little bit softer than factory. The springs in the rear are a little bit stiffer. We're gonna get to rear in a second, but in the front, we're actually gonna add here a helper spring. Ride height wise, in the video where my car did a 7.8, the ride height was pretty high. We think the higher the front is, the easier it is to pick it up. By us lowering it, the hope is it doesn't move as much. In the event it's still lifting up, we don't want it to travel a little bit and lift the front tires. We want the front tire patch to be on the floor as long as possible. So in the event it does lift up, having a longer helper spring, which will allow a greater amount of travel, will actually allow tires to be planted for longer. We also have in front these SPL outer tie rods. I just buy them because they're really good and I feel safer with them. Also, we had to modify things to make our 17-inch front wheel fit. Other than that, front suspension wise, pretty stock. If you want to buy the SPL bushings for the front control arm, I think it is really important. I think I'm going to do it. I don't have it currently. But front wise, that's how it works. There's a bunch of different theories, and you might think, you told us nothing. Don't worry, the fancy stuff's in the back. There's a lot of different theories about having how much front lift you have, so we're gonna try the helper spring. If we don't like it, or the car does weird things, or now it's lifting for so long, now it's wheeling, we can pull the helper spring back out. This is where the magic happens with making this car work as good as possible. The rear, once again, same BC Racing shock, BC Racing springs, once again, slightly stiffer. These are 14K. We're gonna play around different rates, and if you were to buy them, you'd get whatever we think's best. Every single arm in the rear has been changed to SPL parts arm. It gets rid of every single rubber bushing and it puts spherical bushings everywhere. What does that mean? What does that do? When your car's under load, the alignment's always changing. For comfort, BMW puts rubber bushings everywhere. What happens is now you have a bunch of power and you're on throttle. That tire is doing this, shaking, moving around. Your alignment doesn't stay consistent under load. F80M3 drift car I had, F80M3 drag car I had, we always put the SPL parts and it never let me down and always allowed for precision under alignment. If your alignment's moving when you're on power, your car's gonna be all over the road. So a lot of people think that these arms are not worth it. They're all lost. This is a major key to my success of the car going straight is the arms. But there's actually a lot more than that. When doing the alignment on this car, we actually aligned this car with tape measures and toe plates. And the car goes 170 something miles per hour, completely stable, completely straight. And it might sound crazy, but we're gonna explain why and what we do it. From us measuring the ride height from the rim to the body with the springs in at the ride height we desire, we then take the springs out, which is why there's no springs and everything else is fully assembled. We then compress the car all the way down to the bump stops to see the full range of movement. We then check the alignment, the toe and the camber at full ride height and then full compression. We see what's happening. That then leads to us knowing, okay, on the drag strip, the car's compressing to the bump stop, almost to the bump stop, halfway, and we know, okay, at full squat, at 0 miles per hour, where you have most wheel spin, what is the alignment doing? Step 1 is just knowing what's happening, and then step 2 is doing something about it. This car from the factory has 5 links of suspension. This is designed for comfortable ride and also handling. When the car squats in the rear tires toe out from each other. The negative to that is grip. When you're doing drag racing, we run 0 or positive toe in under compression. That means when you're on throttle and the car squats, the tires turning in toward each other in the rear actually adds grip. There's a whole science behind it, but that is literally the basics of how that works. BMW has it for comfort and handling. It toes out under compression. What does that mean? If you guys aren't doing anything to your suspension at all, you should probably put a really stiff spring in the rear. You guys are putting these shitty drag shocks in your car thinking, oh, I'm gonna put drag shocks and my car's gonna drag race better. No. Your car now has more suspension travel, but your car is actually towing out more and more the further you go. And the negative to that is you're actually gaining less and less grip the more the car's squatting. On these shocks, we don't actually have massive amounts of travel more than factory, and it's less travel than the drag shocks have. But based on what I've learned, you don't actually want a lot of travel because you're just gonna ruin your alignment more and more the lower you go. So what have we done to combat that? A few different things. If you look at this rear toe arm, we learned from drifting that the lower you make the tie rod side, when you squat the car down, it will actually tow in more and more and more. We're gonna test it first in the factory location, then we're gonna test it maxed out on the bottom, see the difference. We want 0 toe gain or positive toe gain. That will add more grip under squat. Doing this one change is gonna be huge, and this is just one of the many we have. The next thing we did suspension-wise is potentially a little bit strange, is the forward-most arm. We added more angle to it, and that does sort of kind of two things. On a solid rear axle car like an older Mustang or something, or a drag car, it adds what's called anti-squat. On this car, it's sort of similar. It's adding more anti-squat, as seen on S chassis, where there's images of different anti-squat locations depending on subframe that people swap around in their S chassis. It all works about the same way, but on a car with an axle like this, it's not identical. The second effect is this. If the arm looks like this, and I put 500 foot-pounds here, what happens to my elbow? Nothing. If the arm is like this, and I put 500 foot-pounds, where's my elbow going? Down. This is your tire, this is your chassis. So by you adding more and more angle as the car comes down in the rear, it drives the tire into the ground. That's why the higher your drag car is, and the more the arms are angled upward, the more grip you'll have. The more the car squats, the less grip we'll have, because all these arms are doing this. Past this point is horrible. The real solution is you add more and more anti-squat, which will drive the body away from the tire pretty much, drive the tire into the ground. I don't have unlimited adjustment on this car. On my previous F80, I did crazy subframe modifications to add a lot more anti-squat, and it worked. That's the real step. Stiffer springs is more of a band-aid, but for the average person, doing a stiffer spring will keep your chassis like this and actually probably add more grip. That's gonna be to a point. If you have such stiff springs, the body doesn't move at all, and there's nothing happening, that can lead to wheel hops. There's definitely a balance in all of this. To move the front arm up, we machined down an SPL part. I'm gonna see if they can have it. If not, we'll have a link down below to order the SPL arms for us, and we'll have an option for like the grip change mod. The negatives though to doing this on a street car, guys. If you adjust the anti-squat things, the positive is when you're on throttle, you get more grip, definitively. The negative is when you lift off gas, the car unloads more. On a car that does road racing, or something like this designed to do Nürburgring, all these things, you're gonna lose grip off throttle. And it might sound weird. It doesn't mean you're gonna put it in and crash the car, total it. You guys need to be careful doing whatever suspension modification you do. It's all on you, not on me. But the thing is, it will unload more to some extent. So on drifting, if you're out of grip and your car isn't faster, people do things like this. The negative is when you're let go of the gas sideways, the car floats more, but when you get on gas, it drives through harder and accelerates forward more. So you're not gonna wanna go through turns at crazy speeds on gas and lift because it will feel a little bit more floaty when that happens. The toe adjustment won't have the same negative effect, but when your car is compressing and it toes out, I do think it helps make the turn better. 99% of people driving their cars on the street are doing hits from light to light. And this works if you have an F80 M3, if you have a 2 Series, if you have a 3 Series, any BMW from 2006 on, these changes I'm making are possible for you. The only real difference is on a non-M car, you'd have to re-drill a hole in the subframe upward. You gotta be really precise with that. That way it's at least even from side to side. On this car, we're just machining a piece down and adding a stack of washers to change it. Anti-squat is not something we can easily measure, but the toe change is. This is a toe arm equivalent on a BMW. So the more this goes up, the more it pushes the back of the wheel out, right? And look at, if you look at this wheel, it's the more it's gonna push this in because this arm is back here, right? Now look at this. Let's say this side and that side are perfectly in line, right? When you then go up, look at the difference. The longer arm is going to push that point out further. The inside point down with the SPL arm also requires us to extend it, because to have the two pieces aligned with a longer arm, the longer arm has to be extended for them to be aligned with each other. That small extension of this arm leads to, when the car compresses, towing in more. This is the factory tow arm, right? This is not modified. These are the off-the-shelf SPL spacers. It functions exactly how it does from factory without any arms. This is the forward one that we modified. If you see the washers in here, that's because we raised this point upward a lot. From SPL, it looks just like this, that the ball joint is typically centered between the two ends. There's a before and after height difference of the hind. So the top part's not really relevant, but the difference is one is about 4 millimeters long and one is about 20 millimeters. So we move that arm up about 15 millimeters, which is as much as possible without cutting and modifying things. We're setting it, for example, 0 toe, which means both the wheels are completely parallel with the car. The tape measure reads 75 3/8 and 75 3/8, both the front tape measure and the rear tape measure. We actually do run the car with 1/8 inch total toe in. So we would zero this out, measure the points in the car to make sure it's parallel with the car, and then we would adjust this to 1/8 toe in. That's our standard drag racing setup we used before when we went 7/8. After this, we might change that to find a happier medium, depending on what we learn in a second. We're going to now slam the car, because there's no springs in it, all the way down to the bump stops to simulate the car at full squat on a crazy launch. The reality is, if you put stiffer springs, you might not get there all the way, but this is going to let us know in the worst case scenario, like we experienced last time with the last springs we had in the car, drag racing. If we look at the measurements now, the rear is at almost 75 3/4, and the front is at 76 1/8. That's about 3/8 of an inch. The wheels are going outward. That means you guys with drag shocks that are now slamming the car to the ground, you're experiencing even more toe out, which is worse and worse for grip. I'd rather ride the bump stops on stock shocks than have something that travels more. As you see, we've lowered it all the way down as much as possible. We're now going to see the toe gain effect of that. Like you saw before, it towed out 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to see now, hopefully the goal is no toe out or actually towing in. So guys, the most important suspension thing that you guys need to know is you guys need to like, subscribe, and comment this video if you appreciate this. And if you don't, and you don't like me, please just still comment below. It makes a big difference. I'm trying to do all these things for you guys, show you guys everything on my car. And I can go back to the regular video. Our alignment right now is perfectly zeroed out again. This is 3/8, and this is about 3/8 in the front also. I say about. When we're actually doing the alignment in this car, we're going to be way more precise to the 16th of an inch or better. And we're going to check a million times and move the car around, make sure it's perfect. But for the sake of you guys seeing this and the changes, they're going to be so drastic you won't have a problem seeing with my lack of precision. And watch from the top as we go down on the car and see exactly what it does. I think it works. It definitely works. Let's see what we got. On the rear, we're at 75 7/8. In the front, we're at 75 and a little less than 3/4. It means we now have a little bit more than a 1/4 inch of toe in. A 1/4 inch of toe in might sound like a lot of toe in. When you're drag racing and stuff, guys, it's going to be fine. When you're drifting, it's going to be fine. So that means that we're also going to set the toe in static, probably a hair higher. If you're at 0 or toed out, the car becomes unstable, which is why these cars go down the track all over the road. So we are going to now set the static toe in to 1/8, and we're going to leave it with this little bit more than a 1/4 toe gain over the compression sweep. And the combo with the stiffer springs, the anti-squat movement on the front arm hopefully won't even squat all the way down and max the car out. Something else we do is that you guys saw when this was slammed down, when this is slammed right now, if you look where the tire is, this lift arm is almost loose. We know that this is approximately the maximum. The bump stop will squish maybe about that much more. So we watch back footage of the car launching to see how close this fender gets to this tire. This alignment on this car has, not today, but this time, last time, how many days did it take in? 25 hours plus probably of testing alignment things. If you guys want to guess the effort it takes to go 7s in your first pass, it's not a mystery, it's not a guess, it's not an accident. It is a well thought out and calculated plan in the background, and then Nelson does all the Oh, you see all the white
all the white hairs from me. But Nelson has done this all like 50,000 times every time of testing of like, what does this do? What does that do? And then he just, and then it all happens.
It's worth it when the car goes 781 first class.
It's worth it. But it's a lot of, this is what a lot of people don't see is what's done in the background. This is what we have done. There is things that we will be changing to make it better. There's a chance the anti-squat bars, we will take those and move them up way more with a weird bracketry assembly I designed in my head. Unfortunately, it's not on the car. We did something similar in the last car. We did something similar in my F80 M3. On this car, we might do it to a further extreme if we want more anti-squat. These make a difference on an all-wheel drive car, but they're gonna make a bigger difference probably on a rear-wheel drive car because you're only living on the rear end. So like if I gain a little bit of grip right here, my car might hook really, really good already. It might not need these changes just from using a really good tire compound like the Mickey Thompson in the rear, M&H in the front rear combo. If you have non-modified toe arm locations like we have for our 15-inch wheels in the rear, you will not see a little bit more than a 1/4 inch toe in. You will see something smaller, but you won't toe out anymore. Also in the rear, for camber reasons, we realized the car cambers in 1/2 degree. We actually still run it at 0 degrees camber, and we know at full squat it cambers in 1/2 degree. There's nothing we can do to majorly fix that on this car. And 1/2 degree is very, very minimal. Some people would actually go camber out 1/2 degree. That way at full squat it goes to 0. That would make an effect, but I'm not sure how it affects stability up top, so we're gonna leave it at the 0. So up top it stays like that instead of cambering out. Total front toe in we run is 1/16 of an inch total in. The rear static at ride height is 1/8 of an inch toe in. And you guys can see how good this works. We're gonna do some testing on this tree. We're gonna do some testing at FL2K. We're gonna see if the car with the new turbos I'm putting on it can run a 750 or something insane. 750 at 184 is what Nelson says. If you haven't subscribed already, you better. That's all. There's a new pure stage 3 trans from Pure Drivetrain Solution. Previously I had a stage 3. They came out with so many updates. Now if you were to buy a stage 2, it's pretty much the equivalent of what I had in the car. So this is a stage 3 that they sell to this day. No torque converter changes. They disassembled, I think, inspected it. Transfer case, it's a part, put back together. I don't think there's anything different. I think it was more of an inspection. Maybe they put new clutches just because. But they upgraded me. Train's gonna go back in, and we're gonna keep banging this stuff out one by one to get the GM3 back together.
We have a relocation on the oil cooler for the transmission. We can fill the transmission on the high side here, so we don't have to actually take the fill plug from the transmission and do all the procedures. We already know how much the transmission takes, so we're just gonna fill it up from there and send it home.
Hell yeah.
If 1,500 horsepower was not enough, I now have turbos make 2,000 horsepower on my GM3. We went 7.8 with 6062s, and now I have new precision 64, 66 next gens. Supposed to make about 550 horsepower more. Is it going to happen? I'm not sure. Will it window the block? I'm also not sure. We're going to put these turbos on. We're going to do all the maintenance. We're going to show you guys what's required to go from a smaller to these massive turbos. And we're going to get the car prepped for FL2K. The car went 7.8 1/4 mile already. We're trying to go faster. And what's it going to take? Bigger turbos.
We got the car together with the new Precision 64, 66 turbos on it, and that's really the only major mechanical change we made power-wise, and we're going to try it out and see what we can make. I don't really want to make a lot more power than before. The real goal is just to make sure everything's working fine and have a baseline. Then when I'm on the track, we'll turn it up from 1,200 horsepower where I stop to 1,600 or something wheel horsepower in that range.
Got the car on the dyno. Car makes 1,390 wheel horsepower. If it sounds like a lot, it's a lot. Made 1,350 before. We're good on the dyno in terms of power. We're not done with the car. It's gonna make more in the real world, but this is a small dyno room, so it sucks in shitty air. That's why there's a fan directly in front of the turbo. What we're doing right now is we're testing nitrous shot size. We've put nitrous on the car before. We've used it for launches, but I've never done actual dyno pulls. Now I've done a few dyno pulls at 20 pounds boost with nitrous on the entire pull to see how close my nitrous jet size is compared to the fuel jet. And we've learned the fuel jet's a little small. So we just went a hair bigger on the fuel jet. And this is, I'm not that scared of 100 shot nitrous. I'm more scared if I have to turn the 100 shot to a 200 shot of nitrous for spool. I want to figure out the math to be as close as possible, fueling wise, so I don't run lean. Running lean at 100 horsepower is one thing. At 200 horsepower is probably 200 horsepower and 40 pounds boost with the nitrous stays on till. Probably dangerous. So we're testing this now, so when we go to the track, if I need more nitrous, we have a good baseline. Now we're ready for FL2K.
Being that the car goes 175 miles per hour, it is literally so fast you need a parachute on the car. So because of that, I had my friend Ian from Deering Engineering put these brackets together for the sides, and then we did the finalization of welding it all together here and mounting it as nicely as possible. It went through an OEM hole, so I had to cut up my bumper. And then we got the parachute fully mounted. We did test it to make sure it all works properly. We even went and verified that the lever works and functions properly. Nelson made a mount for the lever inside the car, and we moved it around a little bit and played with it until it was at, like, I would say, the perfect spot. So while I'm locked in the car, I can still release it.
Now that that's done, everybody's gonna get the smoke at FL2K. Straight up. We're ready. Car's working. Everything's dialed. You'll see a cage installed in here before then, but we're ready.
Now ain't true. Now I'm true. What you ain't do?